Hello and welcome to the Vogue Business and Worldpay Masterclass on how to create seamless omnichannel experiences. I'm Megan McDowell, and I'm the Senior Innovation Editor at Vogue Business. Throughout the 5 episodes in this masterclass series, I am joined by brands from fashion and luxury to explore omnichannel, which is loosely defined as meeting customers in multiple channels. While we traditionally think of omnichannel as just being offline or online, it has increasingly expanded to include new channels like social media and gaming. And for this week's episode, I am joined by Massimo Vian, the Industrial Director of Prada SBA. Welcome, Massimo.
Good afternoon, Megan.
So to get started, I'd love to briefly ask, what do you do? What does your role include at Prada?
As Industrial Director in Prada, the activities I manage, they go from when the sketch is ready and is done by our art directors. I manage all the activities from prototyping to samples production, manufacturing, and logistic distribution. So it's a fun job. It's for ready to wear, for shoes, and of course for leather goods accessories.
Thanks, that sounds really interesting. Well, I'd love to get started on our first question about omnichannel, which has been around for a long time, but the definition has really changed a lot in the past year. What projects or experiments are you working on recently at Prada?
In the last period, we've been working in order to enable all our products to be digitally connected through definitely the NFC and the RFID processors inside. So happy to say that now 100% of all our products that are actually produced, they have a microchip in it. And of course, this allows, let me say, very smooth operations from the industrial side to our stores. And in the future, they will enable, of course, connectivity with consumers, not only in our stores, but throughout the whole life of the product.
That's really interesting. So what was it about like the past year that changed sort of the customer journey? I know many of us, we couldn't travel, the stores were closed, maybe we were shopping from different places. How did the customer journey and the checkout process change for Prada in the past year?
In the past year, we've been, as I said before, preparing the ground. So a lot has changed from the industrial point of view, because we create the base for future experiences. The customer experience inside the store has not changed yet with the enabling of the new feature of the RFID. You have also to take into account, we have still to purge the whole system with the, let me say, all the product that still haven't got the RFID chip in it. But let's say that we are ready now to talk to consumers through this new technology.
So your role, I mean, is that sort of a big part of your role, is sort of overseeing this implementation? Or I guess, what do you work on in your role?
My role is absolutely to oversee the implementation, not only from the technical point of view of the microchip inside all our process, but also to keep tracking of all our process in the distribution. And to this respect, this has changed a lot, dramatically. So now scanning any of our products in our store, we can basically get hold of the whole life cycle of that product from the moment it exited our factory until the moment we're actually handed over to a consumer. This is an information we still keep private, but it gives us infinite confidence of the trustability, the level of quality, and the ownership of our products.
Yeah, so let's dive into that. So for anyone who's not familiar, RFID is radio frequency identification, and NFC is near field communication. And as I understand it, it's a chip that you can scan with different devices and basically initiate sort of a digital experience. Is that correct?
It is correct. Maybe one extra information. it's a microchip that identifies specifically that very product. So it's not about that category, but is that very single item that you have in your hands at the moment. So in the near future, we are thinking to upload related to that specific code images of that product during the production moments, even mini video clip with the Italian maestros in Tuscany talking to a consumer. Hey, I am a Mrs. Maria and I'm building your product and I'm so proud. And it's not any purse, it's that very purse. And to this respect, the potential information we can pass to the consumer are infinite and moreover unique. This is the key aspect. Unique about that very single piece.
That's so interesting. So it's almost like a driver's license or a birth certificate or a passport, and each item, I mean, is that correct? Like each item, because of this technology, it has its own identity?
Exactly.
So interesting. And so you mentioned the customer facing portion. So if I buy this bag, I can see someone creating it. I can see some information about this bag. Are you also using this technology in the production, in the logistics, fulfillment?
Yeah.
Are you using that before too?
Yes, definitely, of course. This is a secondary effect if we talk about consumers, but it's of course one of our primary goals in managing the overall supply chain. This allows us to keep tracking of the raw material we're using for every single bag. Of course, the processes, all the different gates, logistic gates. So we're not scanning anymore bag by bag, but we are scanning the whole batch of products that are moving from warehouse to warehouse, lorry, flights, carrier, etc. So all the supply chain is more secure and definitely faster. And this technology is really changing everything basically we do at the industrial level, logistic distribution level, even has a, let me say, a lot of positive effect crossing customs when we deal with legal entities around the world.
That's interesting. I mean, that was one of my questions, is what problem does this solve, or what new benefit does this technology offer?
I would say that the single biggest advantage is let me say, testify in a sort of unique way the original product that you have in your hands. Those codes cannot be cracked. Those codes are in the RFID, but are linked through the cloud to specific database and source number that uniquely identify not only the source, but all the life cycle of that product. And so at customer level, at consumer level, it will be immediately as, clicking on your smartphone to have the proof that your product is original. And as, of course, we still have an issue with fake products around the world. And
that's
this
really interesting.
in itself is a huge milestone ahead compared to the past.
And so in the future, could someone, if they scan this, could they buy a product that through this experience, could they buy something that complements the item that they're looking at? Like, is there an opportunity to add new sales to this?
Absolutely. Scanning your purse, bag, pair of shoes, you could have immediately, suggested that bag was part of one look at the catwalk of, spring summer 21, and you could buy together other items to complete the look. You could have, any sort of communication when you are in the proximity of one of our product stores. Potential is infinite, really, and those potential is really for us important to link the consumer to our product. and the heritage of our product. Of course, my point of view is always, an industrial point of view from a marketing communication, infinite other possibilities. But for me, what is so important to establish a connection with the product and with the trust that that product was made, in a specific place where the value is made with specific product. Of course, traceability in terms of sustainable materials is important and will be more and more important. Through those microchips in the future, I think consumer will be allowed to understand also where the leather will come from, which type of leather, how many grams of CO2 has been emitted to treat that leather. And those information, I think, will be crucial for the consumer of the near future. And that chip and that technology will allow that.
Well, and it's interesting because I feel like RFIDs have existed for a while, but I think fashion is now they're starting to look at it again and a little bit closer to think about all the different use cases. And I understand you recently worked with a university to kind of explore different uses of RFIDs and this type of technology. Can you share a little bit of information about that?
Of course. I think that now the potential, before coming to that, of the RFID has been accelerated also with the link of blockchain technologies and coding, because the RFID itself is, is a microchip. But the strength of the microchip is the fact that you create a digital link of that microchip through the cloud and through the code into that specific model.
I'd love to go back to this blockchain that you mentioned. Recently, the Aura blockchain consortium was introduced, and Prada was one of the founding members. And I know that a part of that is Prada using RFIDs with blockchain. So can you help us understand what that technology will do or why it's important to this conversation?
Blockchain program is directly managed by Lorenzo Bertelli, head of marketing and communication. Of course, I am 100% involved for what is the creating the foundation for that. But basically, everything we talked about so far is, what is behind the Aura program. Guarantee the traceability of the materials, the origin of the products, and I would say at the end also the whole sustainable supply chain that is on the back of those companies that are producing those excellent products. And then again, it's something that as a elite club sometimes we take for granted. For sure, our brands behind, they do have consumers that trust our brands, but you never have to take for granted that trust. And I think to witness the fact with real data and direct communication is an element of transparency, especially for younger generation, will be more and more important. With more brands coming to the market, but not as many brands as the one in Aura program will be able to communicate the level of supply chain ownership that we as a brand in the Aura program can communicate, and we do have, because our supply chains are real, and owning the source of the material and the transformation is the only element as a foundation that can help you to communicate with transparency to the consumer, so they know the real value behind what they buy.
Well, I know we're coming close on time, but quickly I want to ask you kind of what's next, or what challenges are you still working on? I imagine this is going to take a long time to really implement this.
Why? No, not really, not necessarily long time. So it doesn't mean that manufacturing becomes like a media company production, but I do imagine that we will have somehow to have more, let me say, facility throughout distribution and manufacturing process they will be able to witness what I
Mhm.
just talked about in terms of, taking pictures, making interviews. Probably the very first step will be, even in the near future, I cannot say much more, but when you will be able to select and customize a product, let me say a pair of shoes,
Mhm.
it will be easier in a one-to-one type of consumer order with a specific product to keep track of, some of the step of the manufacturing of the item and upload those element of communication, images, videos, pictures, whatever, to the link with the RFID. So in any moment through, let me say, via email or WhatsApp during the building, but even after, when the consumer will buy that product customized, it will always the reference of that product being made.
Mhm.
And so it can happen, I cannot say tomorrow, but not far too long in the future.
Very cool. I'm sure that will be very exciting, and I can't wait to hear more about it. But that's all the time we have for this week's episode. So thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to share all this.
You're very welcome, Megan. It was my pleasure. Thanks to you.
And we hope to see you all at next week's episode with Mark Morris, the Senior Vice President of Digital Commerce at Burberry. Thanks for joining, and goodbye.